Tennessee Titans fans, the Titans will be looking for a new head coach very, very soon, and they need to knock this head coaching hire out of the park. They need the exact right guy for Cam Ward, for the organization to help turn this sinking ship around and get us going in the right direction. I have got 20 names here, 20 different coaches whose name has been attached to the Tennessee Titans in some form or fashion, either by fans or by an article or social media, what have you. I don't think all of these are realistic possibilities, but I'm taking 20 names that I have seen thrown around as possibilities, and I'm going to put them into one of these four tiers: great, good, meh, or disaster. They're all going in here. I've given this, I have not even thought through this. I'm going on the fly, giving my honest thoughts on each one, and we're starting with Matt Nagy. Now, this is a name that has been thrown around with the Tennessee Titans a lot because of his attachment to Kansas City. Mike Borgonzi, the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, came over from Kansas City, so of course those names have been attached. Matt Nagy used to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears, took them to the playoffs once upon a time with Mitch Trubisky as the quarterback. So that's something to keep in mind, something good on Matt Nagy's resume, but things really went south in Chicago quickly. Now he's the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, and how hard of a job is that? With Andy Reid as the head coach and Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, how hard is it to be the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs? I'm going to be honest, I'm not willing to say it would be a disaster, but this would be very meh to me. Matt Nagy as the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans would be extremely meh. Like, just, I don't think it's something I could necessarily get excited about. I'm not going to say I would just be like, oh, this is a disaster, there's no hope. Like, I think Matt Nagy, there's a good coach in there somewhere, but I just don't think this is the guy with where the Titans are at right now that I would look at and be like, yes, he's going to turn it around. But, not a worst case scenario, but not something that excites me either. Up next, we have Clint Kubiak, the current offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's doing a great job there with Sam Darnold. I really like Clint Kubiak, but this one scares me, and I'll tell you why. This is Clint Kubiak's first year as the offensive coordinator with the Seahawks, and while he's doing a great job, remember the name Bobby Slowick, who used to be the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, and he was a red-hot coaching candidate 2 years ago when the Titans ended up hiring Brian Callahan. A lot of people wanted him to hire Bobby Slowick. He ended up staying in Houston as the offensive coordinator and did such a bad job his second year with C.J. Stroud that he got fired. So I just think there's such a limited sample size on Clint Kubiak that, yes, it would kind of excite me, but it would scare me to death too, because it's just such a risk when you have such a limited sample size, and we know the Bobby Slowicks of the world that come on strong and then they slack off. As far as what tier I would put him in, I mean, I would be more intrigued by him than Matt Nagy, if I'm being honest with you. I'm going to, for now, say this would be good. I think Clint Kubiak would be a good hire, but I do admit it scares me a little bit just because of the limited sample size that we have of him being the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks only this year. I believe he was the offensive coordinator for the Saints before that, but a limited sample size with them too. Up next, Robert Saleh, former head coach of the New York Jets, current defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. I did a video all about Robert Saleh, I think yesterday or the day before. I did a video all about Robert Saleh and why I think he could be an intriguing choice for the Titans. I know things didn't go well with him for the Jets, but I don't think he got a fair shot. I mean, Zach Wilson was his quarterback most of the time when he was there. Aaron Rodgers drama at the end that kind of did him in and got him fired after a 2-3 start with the Jets. I think Robert Saleh is doing a great job as the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. I'm not against the idea of Robert Saleh. I think he's a good culture guy. I think he's kind of got that Vrabel type thing where he's kind of that leader of men. And a lot of people in my comments don't agree. I think Robert Saleh, I would classify that as a good hire right now. Like, I don't know if I'd be willing to say that's great, but I think if they ended up hiring Robert Saleh as the head coach, I'd be like, hey, I can get on board with that. Like, I think he could. I think he deserves another shot at some point. As I said in my video I did a couple days ago, I don't know if Robert Saleh is going to want to come to the Titans. I don't think he's going to want to come to the Titans because he's coming out of one dysfunctional organization where he was the head coach with the Jets. That went south. This would be his second chance, and he's going to use it on another dysfunctional organization? I don't think so. Steve Sarkeesian, the current head coach of the Texas Longhorns, his name has been attached to the Titans. I mean, it would be intriguing. It would be interesting. It would definitely get you talking. I just don't know. I don't get a warm, fuzzy feeling about Steve Sarkeesian. I don't know if I would necessarily call this a disaster hire, but I would put it in meh. I've never been that big of a believer in Steve Sarkeesian. I mean, he's doing a good job at Texas, but I just don't. He's got some NFL experience, but I just wouldn't be. That's what I'm having to gauge it by. How excited would I be if the Titans hired this guy? Clint Kubiak, I could get on board with that. Robert Saleh, I could get on board with that. Matt Nagy and Steve Sarkeesian, you're asking a lot. Jim Schwartz, former defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans for a long time. Then he was brought back as an assistant, a defensive assistant for the Titans when Vrabel was here. And now he's the defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, and he's done a good job there. Jim Schwartz has had some experience as a head coach, I believe, with the Detroit Lions once upon a time. I mean, he's got experience with the organization. This would be meh for me. I get it. Like, I think Jim Schwartz is definitely a good defensive coach for sure. He's got experience with the Titans. He knows the higher-ups. He knows Amy. But I just if it came down to it and the Titans hired Jim Schwartz to be their head coach, I just feel like it would be kind of like a Mike Munchak type thing where it's just okay, maybe a Mike Mularkey type deal where you're just all right, whatever. Is Jim Schwartz the guy that can come in and take charge? I just don't know, man. I don't know. Now, then up next, Chris Schula, defensive coordinator for the LA Rams. Now, as these months roll on, new names emerge. You study up on these guys, see what they're all about. I know it would be a first-time head coach, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, coming from the Rams, coaching under Sean McVay, looking at that Rams defense, I think the Rams are excellent. I think they are absolutely excellent. I would be very excited about Chris Schula. He's going to be my first one in the great category. I would be very excited about Chris Schula. Now, I know anytime you hire somebody who's never been a head coach before, anytime that you have a situation like the Titans where they are so bad and you need a coach to come in and stabilize, yes, it can be risky to bring in a first-time head coach because what if it's the next Brian Callahan? But I will say when you're talking about defensive-minded head coaches, that I feel like is easier to find a good first-time head coach as a defensive guy. Yes, sometimes you find your Sean McVay or somebody like that, but these defensive guys, Mike McDonald in Seattle, these guys that have never been a head coach before that are defensive-minded, they are more likely, in my opinion, to be able to come in and be culture guys, leader of men type guys. No knock on the offensive coaches because Lord knows there's a lot of good ones out there. I like Chris Schula. That's a name that just got thrown out there for the Titans over the last couple of days. I really like that. I really would like, I know we want somebody with experience, but if you're going to hire a first-time head coach, Chris Schula, I really like. Up next is Arthur Smith. Remember Art Smith, former offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. Then he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, had a couple of 7-10 seasons. Now he's the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Arthur Smith is a very good offensive coordinator. The verdict is still out. The jury's still out on whether he can be a good head coach. I don't think he got a fair shot in Atlanta because he had Desmond Ridder and he had what was left of Marcus Mariota. They did not have as good of a roster as they have now. Now, I do think they were probably better off with Arthur Smith than they are with Raheem Morris. I don't think that's out of bounds to say. But my only hesitation about Arthur Smith, because he's got experience with the Titans, kind of like Jim Schwartz. He knows the organization. He knows Amy. Didn't leave on bad terms. It's just his personality really reminds me of Brian Callahan. I question whether Arthur Smith can be a culture guy. Can he come in and be a leader of men and get up there and get this locker room in order? Like when I hear Jeffrey Simmons talking about we need culture, we need a head coach to bring in a culture, is Arthur Smith, who's a good offensive mind, I think he's a good offensive coordinator, is he the head coach, though, that can get this thing going? And for that reason, I don't know if I'm willing to say it would be a disaster. But I do think it would be meh. It would be meh. Like, I could maybe be talked into it, but as it stands right now, I'm not saying Arthur Smith doesn't deserve a shot as a head coach again down the line, because I don't think he got a fair shot in Atlanta because of the quarterback situation. I just see his personality and how kind of laid back and soft-spoken he appears to be, and it just reminds me of Brian Callahan. And for that reason, I do think he's a better offensive mind than Brian Callahan, but I just think there's other options that excite me more. Up next is Bill Belichick. Not a realistic option, but it's one that's been talked about. His head kind of got cut off on the picture there. This is the first one I'm going to put in disaster. I think Bill Belichick would be a disaster as the next head coach of the Titans for so many reasons. I think that Bill Belichick over recent years has become more of a distraction than anything, with his off-the-field antics and his girlfriend who's way younger than him, and he's just become a meme, kind of. It's crazy. He's got all these Super Bowl rings, and now he's become a meme. Knowing how he runs things and how he operates, how he would do with the Titans. Amy Adams Strunk, who, like, Vrabel was too much for her. And so you're going to bring in Belichick? You think he's not going to want control? You think he's not going to want to have a huge say-so in everything? I think this would be a disaster. Joe Brady, current offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Kind of feels like Joe Brady's name has kind of slacked off in recent weeks. Like when the Titans first fired Brian Callahan, Joe Brady was one of the main names that was talked about as like, this could be the next, offensive-minded head coach. The Bills have had some up and down weeks. I don't think the Bills have looked as good as people are used to seeing them look, and so his name has not really been as attached to the Titans or the Giants, who have already fired their head coach. So Joe Brady is the next head coach of the Titans. I'm sure he'll get an interview. Some people are going to disagree with me on this. I was going to put him in meh, but like realistically, if the Titans hired Joe Brady to be their next head coach, I would definitely be optimistic. I'll put him in good. I'll put Joe Brady in good. I would be optimistic. It's just everything that would discourage me about it is just another offensive-minded first-time head coach who's been operating with a fantastic quarterback in Josh Allen. You know what? I'm going to put him in meh. I'm going to move him down to meh. I got to move him down to meh. For that reason, if they hired Joe Brady, the more I think about it, the more I think I would be more fearful than optimistic. Because I would just be like, man, everybody said when we hired Brian Callahan, well, he worked with Joe Burrow and all of this stuff. It's like, yeah, maybe that's why he looked so good. I would be very, very fearful if we hired Joe Brady, and so that's why I put him in meh. Up next is Eddie George. Now, this is one of those that I don't feel like is a realistic option at all. Eddie George, former Tennessee Titans, great. Current coach at Bowling Green. His first time as a head coach at Bowling Green. He's doing fine there. And I don't know why people are throwing out his name as the next head coach, but I just want to go ahead and say on record, as much as I love Eddie, I think that would be a disaster. I think Eddie George is the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans would be a disaster. He has so little coaching experience. You remember that time the Colts got Jeff Saturday to come be their interim head coach, and it was terrible? That's what you would get with it. It would simply be malpractice to hire Eddie George just because he's a former Titan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be realistic. You got to be realistic. Like, the 49ers are not out here fixing to hire Joe Montana to come be their coach or Steve Young to come be their coach. Even though they were great players for the organization, like, you cannot, and I know he's coaching, but he has so little coaching experience. You cannot, like, this is not a realistic option, guys. Speaking of not realistic options, the next one is John Gruden. Now, John Gruden is a much more realistic option than Eddie George, but I mean, does anybody really think that John Gruden's ever going to coach in the NFL again? I want to say some of you think this would be a great hire. I definitely don't think it would be a great hire. I would have serious reservations about John Gruden. I would have serious reservations. He has not coached in a playoff game since like 2003. Obviously, you have the off-the-field controversy. He hasn't coached in a long time. Has the game passed him by? I would have serious reservations. But there is no doubt he is a good culture guy. He is a guy who can bring some personality and some life to Nashville, so I'm kind of torn on Gruden. If the Titans actually did it, if the Titans hired John Gruden to be their next coach, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I wouldn't get a little bit like, you know, like I'm not going to pretend I wouldn't get a little bit amped up for it. As long as he is, you know, apologized for some of the things he's done and changed. But would I put it in good or would I put it in meh? You know what? You only live once. I'm going to put it in good. I'm just going to say Gruden would be a good hire. It would bring excitement, a new stadium coming. It would get people talking. It would bring some life and some energy to the organization. If John Gruden is nothing else, he's energetic. I would just worry that because he hasn't coached a whole lot lately, that the game might have passed him by. He hasn't coached in a playoff game since 2003. And how long was he with the Raiders in his most recent stint? I don't even remember. But and he's also kind of like a cartoon character now and a media personality. But I'm not going to lie. Like, if the Titans hired John Gruden, which I don't think is even realistic, but if they did in a world where they hired John Gruden, I'm not going to pretend that I wouldn't be like kind of get some adrenaline in my soul like Cody Rhodes. Up next is Mike Kafka, who has been the offensive coordinator for the Giants. Now he's the interim head coach for the Giants. I think it would be a disaster. I am not high on Mike Kafka whatsoever. Not interested. Not interested at all. No ifs, ands, or buts. Up next, Cliff Kingsbury, former head coach of Arizona Cardinals, current offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, who are not looking too good. I know Jaden Daniels has been hurt, but Cliff Kingsbury is going to be a name thrown around. And I'll be honest, if the Titans hired him, I'd be kind of excited. I'll put Kingsbury in good. I don't think he's going to want to come here because this would be his second chance as a head coach. It's kind of like Robert Saleh. It'd be his second chance as a head coach. And do you want to spin that on such an uncertain situation? But, I mean, if they did end up hiring Cliff Kingsbury, I think it'd be good. I'd be excited to some degree. Mike Tomlin. Now, I know that this would require a lot of things. Number one, I do think it is realistic that the Steelers could part ways with him. As it stands right now, I don't think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. I don't. Aaron Rodgers is hurt. The Ravens are coming on strong. And if it comes to the wild card race, I don't think the Steelers have a shot because you're going to have the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Jaguars, the Texans, the Colts. You're going to have the Bills. You're going to have maybe the Dolphins as they're coming on now. You're going to have, what other division am I missing? I guess that's all of them, but you're going to have a lot more teams other than the Steelers. And now with Aaron Rodgers hurt, I think there's a good chance the Steelers don't make the playoffs. And if they do happen to make the playoffs, I think it's obvious they're probably going to be a first-round exit again. And so I think, with the Steelers being in position to probably draft a new quarterback because Aaron Rodgers is going to retire, you got to turn the page at some point. I could see the Steelers just saying, hey, this is a good time to just go ahead and part ways and bring in a new head coach. We appreciate you. You've been here a long time. Now, if that happens, I think Mike Tomlin would probably take a year off. I could see Mike Tomlin doing what Mike Vrabel did when the Titans let him go and just kind of taking a year. Vrabel didn't take a year off. He was like an assistant with the Browns, but take a year off from head coaching. But if he's available and willing, that would be great. Mike Tomlin would be a great hire for the Tennessee Titans if that were to work out. Culture, stability, been there, done that, knows the ropes. I think that would be great. Up next is Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. A lot of people like this guy. This would just be meh for me. I know he's a good defensive coach, but like if the Titans hired Jesse Minter to be their new head coach, I just feel like the biggest part of me would be like, I mean, I know I have Clint Kubiak and Chris Schula as good and great, and they would be first-time head coaches, but I don't know, man. Maybe some of you in the comments can win me over on Jesse Minter. Up next is a wild card, Marcus Freeman, current head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And this is a name that's recently been thrown out. I got another video that's going up today, Adam Schefter talking about the possibility of Marcus Freeman. I'm torn on this because on one hand, I would love it. Marcus Freeman, culture guy, players coach, leader of men, can get up in front of a room and get you to believe in what he's selling. Took Notre Dame to the national championship. They're about to be in the college football playoffs again. They started 0-2 this year, and then they went on a 10-game win streak. So you got a coach that can overcome adversity. And coming to the Titans, you need to know how to do that. So on one hand, I would love it. The only hiccup, to my knowledge, he has no experience coaching in the NFL. Steve Sarkeesian does. Lane Kiffin does. I know Lane Kiffin, that ship has sailed, but no experience coaching in the NFL. He played in the NFL, but no experience coaching in the NFL for Marcus Freeman. So, like, on one hand, I would love it. On one hand, I'd be scared to death. On one hand, I would love it. On one hand, I'd be scared to death. But more of me would love it. I feel like the biggest part of me would be on board with Marcus Freeman. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Can I put it into great, though? For now, I'm going to put it into good. I'll put it into good for now. But I'd be willing to put it into great. If they interviewed him and like they gave details of the interview and what his plan is, like if he's good enough to go in and win over Borgonzi and Brinker in an interview, having never coached in the NFL, I'd be on board, man. Vance Joseph, I got to hurry. Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, former head coach of the Denver Broncos. This is an underrated name because when he was the head coach in Denver, I think they went 7-10, 7-10, 7-9, however many games they were playing at that time. And he had like some nobodies quarterbacking for him, and that plays a role too. Culture, leader of men, has experience as a head coach. He's got that dog in him. I think it'd be good. Ignore him. I think it'd be good. I know that's not a name. It's not a name that's being talked about a lot, but he's been the defensive coordinator in Denver, and he's been tearing it up. That defense is great. And again, he fits that culture, leader of men vibe, tough, going to come in and kind of got a little bit of that Vrabel to him that so many of y'all love. I think that would be a good hire. Not the flashiest, but I think that would be a good hire. Brian Daboll. I mean, just fired by the Giants. Meh. I mean, I think Brian Daboll's a good coach. I know the Titans can find somebody better than Brian Callahan. I actually think the Giants should have stuck with him. I think Daboll is a better coach than the Giants. I don't think the Giants' issues were because of him. Some people might disagree with that. Some Giants fans might disagree with that. I don't think it would be an outright disaster, but it wouldn't be inspiring. The guy that just got fired for not being able to build around Jackson Dart is going to come build around Cam Ward. I don't know. I like Brian Daboll. So I don't know. Brian Flores. I'm hesitant about another Brian. Here's the thing. I think Brian Flores would be a good hire. I like him as a coach. Culture, leader of men, tough, good defensive mind. It's just his reputation in the front office being difficult to work with, kind of pushing back on things. It makes me think the Titans are going to want nothing to do with him because of that reputation, because they want collaboration. Last but not least, Mike McCarthy. To me, this is still the best case scenario. Great. That would be a great hire. I mean, when you're looking for stable, knows what he's doing, can bring in a culture and get the team going in the right direction because he's been there, done that. Mike McCarthy is the best option on the table. He is. And so it goes into the great tier. In the great tier, we've got Chris Schula, Mike Tomlin, Mike McCarthy. 2 Mikes, of course. In the good tier, Clint Kubiak, Robert Saleh, John Gruden. Hesitant on that one. Cliff Kingsbury, Marcus Freeman, Vance Joseph, Brian Flores. In the meh category, Matt Nagy, Steve Sarkeesian, Jim Schwartz, Arthur Smith, Joe Brady, Jesse Minter, Brian Daboll. And in the disaster tier, Bill Belichick, Eddie George, Mike Kafka. What do you think? Did I miss anybody? Did I put anybody in the wrong place? Tighten up.